leadership in improving agrarian livelihood, food, nutrition, and ecological security, in cutting-edge research and technology development, in higher education and human resource development, and in policy and program formulation, execution, and appraisal, each pursued in international, continental, and global capacities. Professor Singh had made important original contribution in the fields of genetics, plant breeding, and biotechnology, guided more than 45 PhDs, authored more than 300 research papers and policy papers, and more than 12 books. During the last 50 years, Professor Singh Sahab had held several other coveted positions, both at national and international level. He was member of National Commission on Farmers, constituted by Government of India. During 2004 and 4 to 6, he was Assistant Director General of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and Regional Representative for Asia and Pacific from 2000 to 2002, and held other senior FAO position for 15 years from 1979 to 1994 at Bangkok and Rome. In India, he was Chairman of Agriculture Scientific Equipment Board, Director and Vice Chancellor of prestigious Indian Agriculture Research Institute, IRI, New Delhi, as Chancellor, Central Agriculture University, Imphal, and President, National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, apart from Dean and Head of Departments, Senior Professors and Chairs, Member Executive Councils at leading universities. At national level, as member of National Commission on Farmers, he shared the responsibility to suggest the government appropriate policy, strategy, and program intervention to enhance farmers' income and to alleviate hunger and poverty. As research and development leader, Professor Singh had developed widely adopted modern varieties of wheat, rice, pulses, oilseeds, and cottons, which had contributed and continue to contribute immensely to food, economic, and livelihood securities. He steered IRI towards its continued leadership in new millennium and prepared the roadmap for an evergreen revolution. As Chair SRB, he steered a dynamic HRD outlook, and as VC Director IRI, he had forged public-private partnership in research and skill development. Currently, as a President NAS, he provides science-led policy options and science-society interface towards sustainable livelihood security. While with the Food and Agriculture Organization, he had assisted several developing countries in enhancing their human resource, research, and technology development capacities, in augmenting productivity, sustainability, and profitability of major farming system, and in strengthening policies, strategies, and enabling mechanism through launching highly acclaimed national and international programs. As a chair of several professional societies, national committees, and main architect and organizer of several international network and events, such as Asia Pacific Association of Agriculture Research Institutions, Southeast Asian Plant Genetic Resource Program, regional and global fora for farmers, International Crop Science Congress, International Food Legume Research Conference, Regional Conference for Asia and Pacific and India South Asia, India Africa, India Latin America, and Caribbean Conference on Food Security. In recognition of his immense contribution to new knowledge, human resource capital, and science-led transformation of agriculture towards the alleviation of hunger and poverty in India and the Asia Pacific region, Professor Ram Badhan Singh has been awarded the Padma Bhushan by the Honorable President of India, one of the highest civilian honor and recognition, distinguished service of his order to the nation in the field in 2003. Along the Padma Bhushan, his other recognition includes Doctor of Science from 8 universities, Gold Medal from the International Board of Plant Genetic Resource, Lal Bahadur Shastri Memorial International Scientist Award, Vigyan Gaurav Samman, Bharatiya Paramparagat Vigyan Puraskar, Dr. Zhu Showman International College of Nutrition Award, and Distinguished Alumnus Award. He is a Fellow of Academy of Science and National Academy of Science and the National Academy of Agriculture Sciences. Apart from this, he got many international and national awards, which is a long list, and it will take almost hours to read out. So we are very much privileged to have sir with you on this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on this occasion, and I'd like to request you to start your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Before sir starts, I would just like to say a few things. So we have most respected Padbhushan Dr. Rambadan Singh Saab, Dr. J.K. Jaina, DDG Fisheries Science from ICR, Dr. Dilip Kumar, former Vice Chancellor, CIP Bombay, Dr. O.N. Singh, Omkar Singh Ji, Vice Chancellor from BAU Ranchi, and we have many former Vice Chancellors, present Vice Chancellors, and then many directors from ICR institutes. So I would like to welcome each one of you to this very important talk, which is being delivered none other than by well-known scientist, Dr. R.B. Singh Saab. My colleague has already given a lot of details, and most of you are aware. So those explanations were only for those young scientists who have joined, and especially those who are from fisheries. They might not be that much aware about his contribution to the agriculture. So we are really grateful to you, sir, that you have agreed to our invitation to deliver, to be with us, to enlighten us with your knowledge. So even if you take 10% of that, what you are going to deliver will be really enriched. Just to add a few more things which are not normally spoken, he comes from a very humble background, a village called Budanpur in Gazipur district of Uttar Pradesh, one of the most backward district and one of the most backward area of the country. And he, many of you might not be aware, he is the son of a farmer, actually. The kind of greatness he has achieved, so we are not in position to appreciate that. And most of us believe that his father also might be highly educated person and maybe highly rich or maybe learned person, but he was a simple farmer. So this is the background, and then my personal experience. I got not much of the opportunity to interact, but whatever little bit I had, first time I met him when he was in the capacity of Chancellor, Central Agriculture University in Fall. So that was the first time when I got to interact. Before that, I had known and I had seen him. And normally in office decorum, I don't believe in touching the feet, because office is office where we say good morning, good evening. But here was a person where first time, after interacting with him maybe for 30 minutes or maybe less than that, I felt here is a person whose feet can be touched by me, and I touched it literally. So that shows his greatness, simplicity, his knowledge which he is having. And we are really lucky to have you, sir, here. Once again, I would like to welcome on behalf of ICR, on behalf of ICR DCFR, under this very important program of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So it is over to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for giving your time.
Sir, you need to unmute, sir. We are not able.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Oh, am I audible now?
Now you are audible, sir.
I begin by saying good morning to each one of you. And then I was able to recognize our distinguished colleagues. Of course, I'm very grateful to Dr. Pramod Pandey for having given me this opportunity. I am so pleased to see Dr. Jaina, Dilip Kumar ji, Dr. O.N. Singh ji, many other distinguished colleagues, Vice Chancellors, ladies and gentlemen. On this 75th anniversary of the Independence Day, can't be a better day for a country to be independent and celebrating its 75th anniversary, and really looking forward to be one of the leading countries in the whole world, to be transformed to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Therefore, let me wish each one of you the very best on this particular day, and wish you a bright future for time to come in the area that you have chosen to promote to serve the science and society. As I said, it is inspiring to meet very distinguished colleagues here I see, and many of them I had not seen, of course, physically, but now I'm able to see virtually, and after a long time, and had the privilege of working with some of them. So it is so wonderful to see some of you here. My dear friends, you might be able to notice that I have a little swelling here on my left. I am
Right.
having tooth problem, toothache. For the last 2 nights, could not sleep very well, and still, you can imagine when toothache is there, what does it mean? But when Pandeyji's program was there, many people came, so you have to be taken to the doctor and this and that. I had nothing doing. I am with Pramod Pandey, and I will be with the colleagues and outstanding people of the ICR system, and I have no business to leave anything at any cost. Doesn't matter. No pain can stop me from meeting each one of you, and that is how I am here. Therefore, if I am not very jovial, if I am not very vigorous in my presentation, you will please understand it, but I will try. I'll try to see that I communicate with you as illustratively as possible. The topic that we have chosen is the agricultural transformation for nutritional security. Could I have the first slide, Dr. Pandey? Could somebody help me?
Ali, he's putting, sir.
Yes, good. So you will kindly note there that nutritional security is the foremost priority of the nation. As a matter of fact, anything which we talk of the undernutrition, and a wasted child or a stunted child, the kind of cost that one pays in the life throughout by deprivation of becoming a citizen who can contribute as much as anybody else can, that really touched my heart, and I thought that is number one requirement of the nation to really be met with. And fisheries can do it in the most significant way. As we go along, we will see it. So the topic chosen is agricultural transformation or nutritional security. Next slide, please. Here, as a matter of fact, I see I had a fisheries picture also here below the cow, but I do not know what happened to that fisheries picture. There is a woman who was holding a rohu in her hand in the pond and catching fish. And that I had put here, that Pandeyji, that slide went away somewhere. I do not know, below the Jersey cow, that was the slide. Anyway, so please note here that green, white, yellow, and blue revolutions had made India what it is today, the second largest agrarian economy in the world. And this is particularly because of multifold increase in the production from the day we became independent and later on. From 1951 to 2020, the figures are given here. The food grain production increased 6 times. The horticultural production increased 10 times. The milk production increased 12 times. But mind you, the fisheries production increased from 0.75 million ton to 14 million ton, which is 18 times. So you can see, I must congratulate each one of you who have contributed to this kind of development. 18 times from 1951 to 2020 is the growth, is the increase, is the multiplication of the fisheries production in the country. These enhanced production 6, 10, 12, and 18 times of the various commodities on which the Indian agriculture depends have resulted into a very significant decrease in the poverty, hunger, undernutrition, and so on. From ship to mouth situation, we became the situation of food bill right per nation. We had now a major 4th largest agricultural exporter in the whole world. In rice, last year we exported for $10 billion US, worth $10 billion US, rice, basmati rice alone. And as a matter of fact, last year was a very specific year for non-basmati rice because the African countries were starving because of COVID-19 pandemic, and they asked for more rice. So India exported, you will be surprised, another 12 billion tons of rice, $1 billion worth rice, which was the non-basmati rice. So you can imagine, just I'm giving you one example, how the nation has grown and helped not only itself, but also helped the other countries also in the difficult conditions, because we now live in a globalized world and we have to help each other as much as possible. Next, please. Here is the change, that transformation. I am showing you the milk production, which is one of the main nutritional source in the country, all the dairy products, as a matter of fact. I'm comparing the production increase in America and in India. The blue line is the increase in India and the red line is the line for America. You can see here today that we produce almost more than 200 million tons of milk, and our per capita consumption of milk has gone to more than 400 grams per day per capita, which is much ahead of the average of the world. Next, please. And that is contributing in a big way. But all this happened through an organizational system, and you need a leader like the father of the white-green revolution. As you can see, Dr. Verghese Kurian is the one who brought this change, right? You see here a lady milking a buffalo, all the way depositing it in the cooperative, village cooperative, then the bigger place, and all processing. The total value chain integration was brought about by a visionary like Dr. Kurian, and you can see the value added to this process of transformation is amazing. Nowhere in the world this kind of a system exists, and it will be so wonderful to realize that 15 million farmers, mostly smallholder farmers, because the distribution of the livestock is more agrarian, and therefore you can see the smallholder farmers really contributing to it in a big way. You can also see the 1.45 lakh village level dairy cooperatives are in the country, and they are all connected with the best of the value chain. The per capita milk availability, as I told you, increased from 285 to 400 grams per day. Next one, please. And that brought the independence. You can see here some beautiful ladies, and they are happy. They are not only beautiful, but they are happy. Their children are happy. They are all happy simply because every morning 4 million women across 20,000 villages bringing in milk worth rupees 800 million, which are celebrating their economic independence because of this development. And their children are more nutritiously fed. Next one. Same thing is happening in horticulture. You can see the production increases. But then what is important, India is ahead of the global average in many of the commodities like banana, grapes, papaya, and so on and so forth. So you can see that these developments have really done wonders. Next one. We can here see how the diversification of the fruits production is adding to the quality as well as the nutritional aspect of the nation. As you can see, a large number of new fruits and the vegetables like broccoli, baby corn, and cherry tomato, and so on and so forth have been brought into play. Next one. You'll please see here the excellent research work has backed up. I'm only showing you, I'm not being partisan. I'm only because I had access to these slides only. So these are vegetable hybrids developed by Pusa Institute, IERI, where I had the privilege to serve. And you can see in all major commodities, Pusa hybrids for cucurbits and brinjal and tomatoes and so on and so forth. And of course the anthocyanin-rich carrot. These are all wonderful, nutritionally rich products which have come up. Next one. The new mango varieties, which have come up in a big way again, that beginning of hybridization and production of hybrids in mango in the world at Pusa Institute, and now a variety of those, as you can see at Pusa Shrestha and Pusa Pratibha, contributing both to export as well as to local nutrition as well as profitability and income of the farmers. Next one. Friends, this is yours. And I thought this is very, very important for us to feel encouraged and happy. You know, when I saw her name Shakuntala, So of course, I don't remember her other names. I only remember her Shakuntala. Of course, the full name is written there. So Shakuntala really has shown the way how aquaculture and food system could be really transformed to give you nutritional adequacy and also build the income of farmers. And for that purpose, as you all know, she was awarded the World Food Prize only recently. Also, please remember that she in Bangladesh, because Dilip, you have worked in Bangladesh, and she worked with the kind of fishes that we are talking about, small fishes, and so on and so forth. And she brought about the nutrition sensitive approaches to aquatic food systems at all levels in Bangladesh. So she was the one who gave the name from feeding to nourishing. Feeding is not enough. Nourishing is important. The nutritional capacity is equally important. So Shakuntala deserves our congratulations. And when I'm talking of the World Food Prize winner, Shakuntala, I cannot forget to remember Vijay Gupta, our own person who was awarded the World Food Prize in 2005, as you all know, for developing the low-cost fresh water fish production. And he was considered to be the leader and the champion of bringing the blue revolution in Southeast Asia. And we congratulate him also on this occasion that we have the outstanding fellows who have contributed to the system in a big way. Next one. This is just a few figures, and these are all figures known to you. All I just want to tell you that the increase in production has been growing, and the per capita food fish consumption grew from 9 kg live weight basis 1961 to 21 now, as a matter of fact. 1.5 to 2% per year is the growth. The fish supplies as annual protein consumption in North America and Europe about 10%, in Africa 17%, Asia 26%, China 22%, India probably 12% or so. Next slide will show you. Next one, yes, 12.8% as a matter of fact. Here, the total fish production in India has crossed 14 million tons. Total marine fish production, of course, not so dynamic, but 3.72 million tons. But the inland fish, and in that inland fisheries, the aquaculture production is increasing at the fastest rate, and which is the cup of tea which should be really welcomed by all smallholder people, the people in the villages, the people who have small ponds behind their home gardens, and so on and so forth. And all that can really be made to produce nutritive food. And this is extremely important that we allow this to happen in an integrated fashion, and aquaculture in an integrated fish culture with live culture, with crop culture, with horticulture, which Dr. Jaina has been promoted so strongly in the system, including the fish genetic resources, the institute that he was director for a long time. He was able to really increase the variability and the possibility of increasing the wealth, the genetic wealth of Indian fisheries. Congratulations, Dr. Jaina, on this very particular occasion to you. Next one, please. The nutritional importance of fish, I don't have to tell you. Fish is vital single source of protein, source of food, and it is providing about 17% of the animal protein consumed by the world's population, 17% of the protein. Fish is widely recognized as a health food by the virtue of its richness in the essential amino acids, minerals, and trace elements, and low fat content, low fat, 5% or so fat content. Fish is the major dietary source of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and you can see the fish adds nutritional value by preventing and fighting cardiovascular ailments and so on. And our friend, Gopa Kumar, the former DDG fisheries, always talks about the unsaturated fatty acids in fish. And I am so happy that this point I am able to bring about. And you can see why was he so happy about this work that he has been able to advocate. Convey Dr. Jaina my regards to Gopa Kumar and tell that I was remembering him at this occasion. Also to Vijay, Vijay Gupta, that I was remembering them. Vijay had worked with me in FAO at Bangkok, as a matter of fact, when I was there. So I'm so delighted that my people have really done so wonderful. On a fresh weight basis, you all know that the fish contains a good quantity of easily digestible protein, 18 to 20%. And the fish is a very major source of vitamin A, E, D, and B12, and the micronutrients, essential micronutrients of all. Next one, please. Here, just to give you a breakup of the nutritional value of rainbow trout per 100 gram. And you can see here, of course, in terms of energy, 120 kilocalories per day. You can see protein 18% or 20% around. Here, of course, in trout, 17.23. Fat is lowest. You can see 5.1 gram out of 100. And so on and so forth. But you can see the potassium and magnesium and sodium and all other elements, as well as the micronutrients, are very rich in fishes. Therefore, that is the value of fish, that wherever we are lagging behind in many of our usual diets, fish complements it much better than anything else. So remember this. So the fish for nutrition is the best bet for India. Next one. Friends, we find here, and we have done this wonderful work, but we find that there is a typical Indian enigma, paradox, I can say. As you know, all the rainbow revolution, including the green, white, yellow, and so on and so forth, you see, and the average growth rate of GDP of 7 to 8% per annum. The number of hungry people in the country is around 200 million. And this is very high. Of the world's malnourished, stunted, and wasted children, around 25 to 40% are our own children. So you can imagine, we build the nation on the shoulders of children. How can we build a strong nation on the shoulders of stunted children, on weak children, or stunted children? So we have a tremendous responsibility to perform. And 1/4 of the world's small farmers live in India, and they comprise 50% of the rural population. But mind you, the farmer and non-farmer income asymmetry is 1:4. If I am a farmer, I get 25 rupees. If I am a non-farmer, I get 25 to 100 rupees. So you can see 1:4. We live in two Indias. One India of farmers, one India of non-farmers. And you can imagine that one India of farmers is 50% of the population of the country. So my dear friends, one has to be very careful to see nutrition, particularly of the smallholder farmers who constitute the bulk of the nation. The nation of youth has the largest bulge of unemployed youth. And so rather than the population being a demographic dividend, it is a disaster that a large number of our people are unemployed. But we also know that agriculture is 2 to 3 times more effective than other sectors in alleviating agrarian crisis. Yet investment in agriculture is very low, while the rate of return on investment, on the net investment in agriculture, is 1:12. If you spend $1, you get $12, as a matter of fact, on average. So wonderful investment proposals can be done in agriculture. The best returns can be obtained, and the smallholder farmer who is poor can be made to be much more better in livelihood security. Now, similarly, if we see the data, which shows that if we spend $1 for improving nutrition, then it delivers about $16 to $40. So investment in nutrition, in building a nation, is 16 to 40 times much more profitable. You can imagine here. So hence the topic that we have chosen and the responsibility that you all are carrying is that this, to maximize or take advantage of this possible return. If you spend $1, you get $16 to $40. But my friends, what happens when you have the rainbow revolution? When you have the rainbow, at the end of the rainbow, you see a golden pot. Now we have a rainbow revolution, we have a golden pot, but our golden pot is full of injustice, non-inclusiveness, unbalanced nutrition, And at the end, we are finding that our golden part is there, but it is not filled with the right combinations of attributes. Next one, please. Therefore, I remember Ban Ki-moon. I had the privilege of being with him for the conference which decided the global priorities for the our sustainable development goals. And he, at that meeting, we were preparing for the sustainable development goals in Brazil. He was able to name this, that hunger can be eliminated in our lifetime, and there is a challenge to bring a global zero hunger. I do not know what is happening to slides. Oh,
Shankar Narayana Shankar don't present.
okay.
Some Shankar Narayana Shankar started presenting. That is why.
Oh. This is the one. I do not know.
Ali?
Are we coming back?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are doing.
Okay.
Dr. Ali?
Yeah, got back. Wonderful. So, my dear friends, this Global Zero Hunger Challenge was announced by the then Secretary of United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, in 2012. And he said, to get 100% freedom from hunger, you have to have 100% access to adequate food all year. There has to be zero stunted children less than 2 years. All food systems should be sustainable. 100% increase in smallholder produce, productivity, and income. Please note here, 100% increase in income. Ban Ki-moon in 2012 talked about it. And today we are talking in our own country for the last few years, doubling farmers' income. 100% increase means doubling. And this is what he said in 2012. And if you are doing it today, I am glad we are doing it today. Now, therefore, zero hunger generation has to be created. Zero hunger India has to be created. If you follow these 5 pillars which are given by Ban Ki-moon. Next one. This is just to show you the importance of smallholders in our country. Next one, please. Whether it is cereals, fruits, or milk, vegetables, they are always on the top. The per capita water availability in India has declined tremendously. As a matter of fact, the water availability, we have already reached the level of water scarcity zone, that is in between 1,000 millicubic meter to 1,700 millicubic meter. And you can see in 2021, we are here in the middle of these 2 lines of water stress and water scarcity. We are already in the middle of a stress, terrible stress. Next one. You see, where is this stress maximum? Punjab, Rajasthan, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, and so on. The red line indicates the water stress in different states. And my dear friends, I will not go into details of the policy, how policy has influenced this kind of degeneration of water. Now you can imagine rice wheat, minimum support price, procurement, all that related to allowing a particular kind of farming system to make the generation to come deprived of water. Now this is, please see where it is happening. A scientist colleagues like you should be able to educate farmers as well as the policy makers, because you will find many a times, many chief ministers, many politicians go out and say, I will give electricity free, I will give water free, I will make this free, I will make that free. All these policies have resulted into this kind of a situation. How long can you allow this thing? It cannot go on doing these things. Next, please. Now, here again, you can see a contrast. The per capita water storage capacity in India. Please see India here at the bottom, 219 cubic millimeter. And you can see Russia, Australia, Brazil, USA, China, South Africa.
You are muted, sir. Please unmute, sir.
Since when are you not able to hear me?
No, only just a minute. Just maybe less than a minute.
Never mind. Just here to show you that we are far behind in water storage capacity. India is at the extreme right, and you can see Russia on the extreme left. How much is the difference? Several fold. Next one, please. Not only our water, but our soil is getting hungry. Not only thirsty, but hungry. Hungry in terms of the micronutrients. You can see over the years, right from 1950, if you were deficient in nitrogen, today in 2017, we are deficient in about 12 to 10 major elements, as you can see. And mind you, these fisheries are the one who will take care of many of the soil deficits which are there. They will compensate in your food these micronutrients which are rich in them. Next one, please. Here is the biodiversity. As I told Dr. Zaina, for your excellent work in fishery genetic resources, India is a gene-rich center. And this should be the source of the variability of the many crops and the animals and livestock here. You see, is the source of our future growth as well as nutrition. We must be able to judiciously characterize our genetic resources, must know their value, which one is rich in what, so that we are able to combine this in our cropping pattern, as well as genetic improvement of our crops, as well as animals and fish and so on. Next, please. Our total factor productivity growth has also been rather slow. At the India level as a whole, it is 1.08% or so, but you can see in Bihar, Himachal Pradesh and so on, it is less than, it is around 0.191 at 0.2. Tamil Nadu has the highest, around 4.08 and so on. So you can see tremendous variation. And we should be able to learn from each other to increase the average total factor productivity growth rate in the country in all these states. Agriculture being a state subject, all the chief ministers should be aware of this comparison from one state to the other state. Next one. Next one, please. Okay, seems some problem with the slide. Can we?
Ali, next one.
Next one, please.
They're doing so.
You keep on going after every minute, as a matter of fact. In 1 minute, I will cover one slide and that's it. So you be ready to change every minute. Total factor productivity growth. I'm sorry, friends. I'm sorry. What happened? Should I?
Sir, I think some internet connectivity issue. Maybe just 1 minute we can wait, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I think the operator they have some problem internet connectivity.
Okay.
They are disconnected probably.
Yes, sir. They're disconnected, trying to connect, sir.
All right. Good. This is. Okay, this one is the old one. Friends.
Slides are visible, sir?
Yes.
But the same one. Next. Go to next.
Go to next, please. And keep changing every minute. Here is the projected change in agriculture productivity from climate change. You see the red number, India. The maximum depression due to climate change will occur in India, minus 25% as compared to other countries. So climate change management for India is extremely, extremely important. Next. Despite all this, what we find that the expenditure intensity in India for research and technology development is very low. Research intensity, as you can see here, maximum 0.4%, and on extension, it is maximum 0.18%. While if we look at in Australia and India, it is 3%. And we have been talking about in the country at least raise it to 1% for the last several years. The NAS, National Academy, several times wrote later to the Prime Minister also, that please increase the investment in agriculture intensity, research and technology, innovation development. Now you can see where we stand. Next one. We have the challenges for science, technology, innovation for developing effective solutions. There has to be sustainable intensification and diversification. It cannot be in isolation, and the technological revolution for that is called for. Profitability and social attractiveness to agriculture as a profession. Doubling farmers' income, youth attracted to agriculture, Arya, Rave, Maya, all those developments are required to really help agricultural growth. Ecosystem services are important to be improved. For example, water quality, soil health, carbon capture, biodiversity and wildlife habitat, climate change management, predict differentiated future demands of different commodities. Today we have the analytics and big data available. We can calculate the interactions of many factors together and know their main effect as well as the interaction effect, and can put our money where we find is the maximum growth possible. And therefore use the best of the technology available, the analytical data analysis, to increase the productivity as well as income of the farmer. We must realize the triple wins for the climate smart agriculture. Unless all the three are combined, it will not be climate smart. Productivity enhancement, resilience and mitigation. All these three for CSA are necessary. We must ensure congruence of economic, social and environmental sustainability when you use any science, technology or innovation. And we must be able to ensure effective farmer market linkage. I think there is one more probably, but anyway, that's it. So kindly, these are the things which we require for meeting the challenges of science, technology, innovation. Next, please. To do that, the science, technology, innovation has to be demand driven. And the demands are in 4 packets. STI in the middle, as you can see. On the top is the climate change management demand. Consumer awareness. What to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, where to eat, and what to produce, how much to produce. All kinds of things. Sustainable diversification and intensification. Diversification alone is not enough. Intensification alone is not enough. Both. It has to be sustainable in diversification. And that is important. Humanitarian goals, that is the small must be helped. A small holder must be on the center stage of growth, and they should not be left behind in the development, the tribals and so on and so forth. So science must have a human face. You look at the person behind the plow, and then you please prepare your science to help that person. You look at the small fisherman with the net, and then you prepare your science to help that small fisherman. Science should be able to look at the face of the human being whom it is going to serve, and that with that consideration you have to do your science. Next, please. Now we have to come up with the innovative technologies. Many are already there. The hybrid technology, the biotechnology, the transgenics, haplotypes, genomics, gene editing, and so on. In many crops and commodities, these have already helped a lot. Now, what we left out, cotton, of course, we are #1 in the world. Brinjal, our creation, but Bangladesh is benefiting from it. You will be happy only recently, Philippines has allowed the development and release of golden rice. For 20 years, for 2 decades, golden rice was sitting idle here, there, and neglected. Now, I'm so happy to say that during the last 1 month, golden rice has come in the world market, and golden rice is rich in vitamin A particularly, and many of the micronutrients. And this, because of that anthocyanin content, the color is different. Next one is conservation agriculture, protected cultivation, micro irrigation has to increase significantly, bioenergy, emphasis on that, and biofortified crops. And this is important for us because the quality protein maize, rich in iron, rich in zinc, rich in uh, other contents, and similarly rice rich in iron, and bajra rich in zinc, and so on and so forth, wheat rich in zinc. These are all available, new variety. Now my submission is that those who breed these varieties should be able to be given a special recognition and the price support for this additional nutrition, and all varieties, all crop varieties should be enriched in time to come by these resources. And this is where the genetic resources utilization, engineering, crop engineering, genetic engineering is very important. Next one, please. Here you can see in QPM maize and how the increase in the characters of the value of the micronutrients and the tryptophan containing content in protein and lysine content in protein has tremendously increased. When the protein content goes up, very often there is a negative relation in tryptophan and lysine, but you can breed a variety which will have much more tryptophan and lysine as compared to the original maize variety. So the high quality protein development through the process of genetic engineering is molecular aided selections with the vitamin concentrations and so on is a distinct possibility. It is happening. Many varieties are already in the field to be utilized. Next one. Similarly, we have to have total integration of the natural resources, soil health. Similarly, the leaf color chart and the information communication technology based nitrogen management, efficient water management, and all those measurements you can take, put it in the computer, and along with the computer, you can have the remote sensing approach. So immediately you can have all the factors put together with the new technology available, with the remote sensing, with the drones, you can know where is what and which crop reeks, which treatment, and which water, which kind of soil health is deteriorating, and so on. All this is all possible now. Sitting, you can see with all these appliances, you can really learn about it. Next one. Friends, climate smart agriculture similarly will care for weather, crop, water, nutrient, livestock, fisheries. For example, in fisheries, to have climate smart agriculture, composite culture, diversification, cage culture, wastewater aquaculture, all these will increase the climate smart agriculture through the fisheries work. Next one. We live in one world, and I think one world should also think of one health, one world. And one health means what? Please see, better soil, better plants, better animals, better humans. I want to see the one which I have written next to the soils. Soil, nutrient, water. The soil health is a mirror image of human health. If soil has the richness of the micronutrients, that will be coming to the plants, to the animals, and to the human being, and the soil will be reflected in the human health. So you can see, soil health is the mirror image of human health. This is very important notion, and through that you can build the entire one world, one health system, and which is more important today when we have the pandemics all over the world threatening the livelihood of large number of people. Next, please. Well, we have to have differentiated, decentralized, and integrated approach. This I don't have to go time and again. We have to look at, as I told you, the Tamil Nadu has the total factor productivity growth of 2.8% or so, and Bihar and other states have less than 1% or so. Now, we have to have a treatment for Bihar, separately for this and that. Each state has its own specific characteristics, its own situation. So we have to have a differentiated, disaggregated approach. One Coca-Cola will not be served in America and India the same way. We cannot have a Coca-Cola agriculture. We have to have a differentiated, disaggregated agriculture depending on the need. And therefore, the adoption through genomics, gene editing, and the new preferred technologies which are coming up in breeding and improvement, the systemic biology can become very, very important, whether it is fish or it is livestock or it is crops or plants. Next one, please. Well, nutrition and smallholders should be at the center stage of the national development. As I said, how important they are. If they are not nourished properly, how their generation suffers, and how dwarfism, stunting, and wasting of children can become epigenetic character from generation to generation. Next one, please. Agriculture education system has to be similarly modified, and I have mentioned STEM to STEAM. Science, agriculture has to be very much surrounded by science, technology, innovation, and of course with the mathematics and other social sciences behavior. So the new education policy of India talks about that how should the new education policy be really created. And we talked about this about 5 years ago, and we published this paper in the book that has come out from the NAS. So the Odisha Congress, some of you might have attended the Odisha Congress in Bhubaneswar. The Bhubaneswar Declaration has many of those things that you have to develop youth for leadership in agriculture, and capacity building of the rural youth through entrepreneurs and technology is very, very important. Next one. You can connect the biology with the total bioeconomy, and you can see here whether it is primary production or health connection or industry connection, all can be interconnected. And at the bottom, you can see when you can produce fine chemicals, you can have the production of vaccines. Today, COVID demands all kinds of vaccines. We are not having enough vaccines. So the whole bioeconomy system has to be interlinked. You can see the industry, the primary production of crop, food, feed, fiber, and so on, then the health consideration and the industry consideration, enzymes, biofuel, and the bioproducts, all can be interlinked. And this is if agriculture does not have the basic sciences, the best of the science to be put together and help, rather than going splitting, having a horticulture university, a fishery university, and a rice university or a falana university, all this will not work. And this is what I want to show you, that splitting of universities should be stopped as quickly as possible. Multi-faculty universities where you can reach physics, chemistry, biochemistry, biotechnology, you name it. You have to be rich. Only then agriculture will grow, otherwise it will not grow. Next one. This is where the last but one slide. The new vision for agriculture is that we have to meet the sustainable development goals by the year 2030. The productivity has to increase by 70% by 2030. Rural poverty has to be down by 100%. If you have to meet the SDGs 2030 agenda, all the 17 goals we have to meet, then this has to be done. The hunger has to be reduced by 100%. You remember the Secretary General's advice, zero hunger. So hunger by 100%. The emission of the gases has to be reduced by 35%. We have to have better atmosphere, better breathing places, and so on and so forth, so that all these 4 things are so very important if we have to attain all the 17 objectives of the national growth. Next one. And it is with this consideration that, as you all know, the UN Food System Summit in September this year, the action tracks, 5 action tracks have been identified, and these 5 action tracks should guide us, whether it is fish, whether it is crops or livestock, any system. These 5 actions are ensuring access to safe and nutritious food. 2, shift to healthy and sustainable consumption pattern. 3, boost major positive, it is not major, it should be boost nature positive. It is nature. Please, a mistake here. It is nature positive production. So there has to be nature positive production. We enhance nature, at the same time we enhance production. Both is possible, can be done, should be done. We should have advanced equitable livelihood security. No one should be left behind. If 1:4 is the ratio of income of farmer and non-farmer, you can well imagine you cannot progress. We have to build resilience to vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities could be the biotic or abiotic vulnerabilities. We have already the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic all over the world, stopping everything to happen. And then we have to build resilience as one word. We all have to see that we work as one word to meet the many of the challenges. Then I want to come to the final words of Mahatma Gandhi. Please go to the last slide. I hope, yes, it is there. Towards zero hunger, nutrition secure, and prosperous New India, we want to listen to the Mahatma Ji, who had 7 points, but I have listed only 4 points here. We must be guided by the following profound words of the father of the nation. What he says, you must judiciously blend knowledge with character. If you have knowledge and if you don't have character to use that knowledge properly, it is a sin. So you better have knowledge with character. Commerce with morality. You know, today in the pesticides used, about 50% of the pesticides, as you all know, are fake. And if the 50% of pesticides are fake, they are sold at the same price as the best of the pesticides. And then you can see they do the double damage. They don't work to control the pest. At the same time, they have taken the money of the small poor farmer. The crop is lost. So if you have that kind of commerce without morality, you cannot progress. So if you have to progress, you better have commerce with morality. Third one, science must have a humanity and science must have a human face. Do the science keeping in mind the poorest of the poor, the one who is the hungriest of the hungry. Keep in mind that your science will reach that person who needs it the most. And that is, I think, is very important. Finally, which is today very important, we must have politics with principle. Whatever we do, unless we combine politics with principle, if there is politics and there is no principle, it is a sin. It is a big sin. Now we have to tell our people that please do politics with principles. Do not jump or go on tweeting on anything and everything without any purpose and without any reason. No, please think what you are doing. Please think you are elected by the people to serve them with humanity. So if there is no principle in politics, that is a sin. So these 4 profound words of Mahatma Ji have to guide us, and that is what I think should give us a future India, which will be very free from hunger, nutritionally rich, and the best of India will come through that process. Fisheries will contribute to it in a very significant way, which I have mentioned to you already, as the Shakuntala's work, Vijay Gupta's work, and so on and so forth. All of you have done, and all of you are contributing today, and you will be contributing in the future. All the directors, vice chancellors, Dilip Kumarji, I am so happy to see you. Dana Sahab, Pramod, all of you are contributing. All of you contributing. I wish you all the best success in your life to really build a new India with better nutrition. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for such a vibrant lecture. And as I told in the beginning, that even if we take 10% of this home, That serves the purpose of this today's lecture. And we have the participants and audience throughout the country. And these are the participants who have opted to listen you. They were not forced to listen. So always we had somewhere more than 95 participants, and it remained more than 95%. 95. So that shows that it was really a committed audience who really wanted to listen you. So thank you very much, sir. Before I request Dr. Jaina Saab to conclude, I will request Dr. Owen Singh, Vice Chancellor from Birsa Agriculture University, to say a few words if he wishes. Dr. Singh sir. Are you there, sir? Probably he's not there, or he might have left. He is there, but I don't know. Maybe Dr. Gopal Krishna also. We have Vice Chancellor from Central Institute of Fishery Education, Mumbai. If you would like to say a few words.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Respected Dr. Singh, Dr. J.K. Jaina, my colleague Dr. Pandey, and all the colleagues who are here attending the program. It was really very, very wonderful lecture by Dr. Singh. And it was an opportunity for me to have the overview of all the agricultural things in such a manner, in such a lucid manner, that you understand what is the contribution of agricultural sector is there as far as the human development and growth is concerned. And the visionary talks which you have given has enlightened all of us. And I will just mention here that a few days back we were listening to Dr. Ayyappan in a lecture that he has given at SIFRI, of course online. And then subsequent to that, your lecture. This has really, really made my week successful, because learning all these things coming from the stalwarts and at single place, and within a span of hardly 7 to 8 days. It's so nice to listen, sir, and so nice, enriching experience. And I think all the colleagues who are listening this will certainly help them to make the vision for future, because these colleagues will have to continue for another 50 years from now. So their understanding of the past and vision for future will have the enormous and different vision for the people. And as we know that the population is increasing, our resources are constricting, and technologically led agriculture and technologically led fisheries has to be there for tomorrow. And it is not the production that has to increase, as you said, that productivity and then the profit of the farmer should also increase. So that has to be in the, under the baseline of this. And I thank Dr. P.K. Pandey for organizing such a nice talk and invitation to me that I could listen all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So nice of you for putting good words. It will be encouraging for all of us to organize such more talks as part and parcel of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
Yes.
May I now request our former Vice Chancellor from CIFE, Dr. Dilip Kumar Saab, who had a great association with Sir, if he would like to say a few words.
Unmute.
Sir, unmute please, unmute please.
Okay. Many thanks, Dr. Pandey Sahab, and congratulations to you for organizing. I think that, you see, this is one of the lifetime inspiring lecture for me. And what I see that Dr. Singh Sahib is no doubt, uncertainly, of course, he is the Bhisma Pitama of agriculture in the country. First thing. And second thing, just to see, being the Bhisma Pitama, he has given the, or he has defined that what is the, agriculture dharma or agriculture science dharma or agriculture education dharma. He has just to see already explained. And I take it more seriously because he is son of the soil, who he is simply not preaching, but he has practiced from the very beginning. It is all imbibed in me, and then this is really just to see it's a great lecture, sir. And it is our duty, all of us, that we must imbibe it, and then only we can transform agriculture, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. If anybody else would like to say anything before I invite our Honorable DDG to conclude, please feel free. Even if you have one or two queries or something, you can share. Yes.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, sir. Can I
just... Please go ahead.
Sir, I am Dr. Neerja from Indian Institute of Rice Research. We are associated with CRP biofortification for cereals, sir. I just want to inform our respected RB Singh, sir, that several biofortified cereal varieties as well as vegetables and fruits have been released, sir. So as he is associated with policymakers, maybe he can put in a word for their integration in the public distribution systems or any other nutrition schemes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Neerja. So I think it's time I should request our Honorable DDG to conclude the session. Before I request, I would like to thank each one of you because it was a really interesting lecture. And as it has been told by our Honorable Speaker, that how much importance we need to give to the fisheries. And sir has given that the kind of growth fisheries has been giving, that is 18 times during the 1950 to till date it has given. But if you see the culture, because when we talk about the agriculture, horticulture, and then aquaculture is comparable, not the fisheries to that. Then if we talk only about the aquaculture or inland fisheries, then if you talk about inland fishery, it has given almost more than 40 times growth during the same period. And if you talk about aquaculture, that has given more than 30 times, 31, 32 times. So that's a tremendous progress fisheries has made under the leadership of former DDGs, our present DDG. And still we have to go a long way if we have to really address the problem of nourishment actually. Because it was the first time when I heard from sir that if we continue to be secured with food security, and if we do not pay attention to the nutritional security, we are really going to produce dwarf and retarded mind kind of the progeny. And that will really lead to the country in a great trouble, which we should realize that this is the high time. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving your valuable ideas and insights so that we really become rich. I request our Honorable DDG, sir, for giving your valuable time. I would like to thank DDG especially, and then I request him to conclude. Thank you, sir.
Namaskar, Shabhi ko hamara namaskar. Good afternoon, most respected Padma Bhushan Professor RB Singh ji, Speaker of the today, Dr. P.K. Pandey, Director of our one of our institute, DCFR. I find several of our seniors, mentors who are present, Dr. Dilip Kumar ji, and some of the Vice Chancellor who are present. I find also several of our directors, including Dr. Gopal Krishna, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great privilege, honor for all of us to listen to none other than Dr. RB Singh ji. As Dr. Dilip Kumar Sahab told, it is one kind of lecture, probably a lifetime listening opportunity, rather I would say. Sir, you have taken us 360 degree of Indian agriculture, not only Indian agriculture, food system, and so forth. Yesterday, I got a call from Dr. Pandey telling that I need to preside over the meeting where Dr. RB Singh Sahab will be speaking. I told no. Frankly, I told no. When RB Singh Sahab is a speaker, he will not be speaking. He is the chief guest, he is the president, he is the guest of honor, he is everything. And we all are, maybe we can only be audience, nothing more than that. Only because I am in position, probably I have agreed to speak at the end, but definitely I will be speaking as a as an audience only. Sir, Friends, I would like to tell you, maybe we used to hear about Professor R.B. Singh Sahab all the time about during last 25, 30 years of our career, at least I would like to say, but I did not have opportunity to meet him. It is only when I joined as the director of NBFGR, and I got opportunity to organize the 10th Agricultural Science Congress when he was the president of NAS. I came very closely, discussing very closely with him, and I could understand whatever I had heard for 20, 25 years, probably that was not correct. Not correct because I thought he is only a person like any other, maybe a leader like any other, but he is totally different. When I started interacting with him, the knowledge he has, the depth of knowledge he has in every area. You must have heard he not only spoke about agriculture, he spoke also in length about the fisheries, tried to integrate the importance of fishery to the food system. He also had an opportunity to work with Dr. Gupta and all others. So I'm sure he had opportunity to interact with about the fisheries and all other aspects, related aspect. As I told, since last 10 years, 2010, this was my first meeting, rather I would say. Last 10 years, every time I meet, since then, every time I listen to him, every time I get opportunity to interact, rather every time I get a platform to share my thought, I become rich in acquiring some additional knowledge. Let me tell you, friends, I'm sure those who have not got opportunity, I'm sure that you must look for opportunity to interact with him, to speak on any subject. And he can speak for hours. Anything any topic you give, he will speak for hours. Whether it is agriculture, the food system, and global status, anything. And the knowledge he has acquired not only about in India, staying at IRI or so, but the global knowledge he has at this point of time. At this age, he is able to speak for hours. He spoke about our stand globally. He spoke about the issues like climate change, water scarcity, soil nutrient deficiency, One Health, several areas. I did not want to again summarize things, but each of the area he spoke are so important for all of us. He spoke about not only increasing the production, productivity, necessity of that, but he spoke about the safe and nutritious food, sustainable consumption systems, environmental sustainability, bringing resilience to all sort of stressors. Sir, we are indebted to you. We are grateful to you for accepting the invitation of Dr. Pandey to deliver this lecture. I sincerely think that you will give us opportunity also again and again to listen to you in different platforms, sir. We are privileged, rather I would say, on behalf of the council, on behalf of the Fisheries Science Division, on behalf of Dr. Pandey and DCFR, and my own behalf at the end. I would like to profusely thank you, grateful to you for accepting the invitation and enriching all of us, with your great knowledge and wisdom what you have. Thank you so much, sir. Grateful to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Look forward for your
all the
guidance
best
in future also.
All the best to each one of you. Great opportunity to see each one of you. Such a great thing. Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, God.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
So,
Thank you, sir.
with your
Keep it up.
permission, we'll
Thank you, sir.
close the meeting, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thank you, dear. कैसे करते हैं?
Dr. Pandey, you can close from there at that end.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Before closing this program, I would like to formally give a small vote of thanks We are highly honored and we are highly indebted for being you at this lecture, sir. We are very much thankful for your kind presence and very nice and very knowledgeable lecture on agriculture transformation. I would like to thank all the directors, vice chancellors present in this, attended this program virtually, and we would like to thank our honorable DDG for his kind presence and patience listening, and he was with us for our encouragement, and we hope that in future also he will equally bestow his blessings and presence for this kind of program. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank all the deans, all the scientists, different representatives from other ICR institutes and KVKs. I have seen so many people here. And I would like to thank all my colleagues here in DCFR for participation. And I also would like to thank our AKMU for arranging this program. Thank you one and all. Thanks.
Thanks. Now close.